Okay, then if not, let's understand ourselves what our relative clause is. So basically, I have a very small passage over here. This one line. Can I have anyone read it out loud? Harith, can you
Yes. The man entered the. You want me to read the
read it
topic
out?
as well?
Yeah. Go ahead,
Okay.
read it out loud.
The man entered the room. The man sat down. The woman looked at the man. The man opened a file. The file had papers.
Okay, so very redundant, right? Redundant and a bit hard to listen to because all I kept hearing was the man, the man, the man. But then what
Yeah.
is missing over here? How can we fix this? Is with this one sentence only that combines everything. The man who wore a gray suit entered the room and opened a file that had papers in it. So concise and proper. And this is how relative clauses make your answers or make your writing more coherent and with more flow. And what are the relative clauses over here? The man who wore a gray suit entered the room and opened a file that had papers in it. So before we head to the definition of relative clauses and how to make a sentence with one, understand relative clauses describe the man or the noun that we're talking about. For example, which man came into the room? The man who wore a gray suit. That man entered the room. And the same man sat down. You can put a comma over here and then put sit down as well. Okay, so let's understand what are relative clauses. They modify a noun and usually begin with the relative pronoun. For example, who, which, that, whose, where, and when. So modify a noun means they talk about or they explain the noun. For example, in this case, the man who is describing this man, right? So, different types of relative clauses and how to use them in your writing and in your speaking. The first one is the most commonly used, and I'm sure that all of us must be using it already without knowing. So, it is what we call a defining relative clause or a restrictive one. It gives essential information about the noun, and for this one, we do not use any commas. For example, the woman who lives next door is a doctor. So we do not necessarily put a comma between the women and who lives next door is a doctor. If you do put a comma, that's fine, but it would mean that you are emphasizing. But unless you're not emphasizing and it is just part of the information that you want to share, then no commas are necessary. And what are we describing over here? The women. Yes, Harriet, go ahead.
So we can use the comma, right? Like,
Only if you're
what is the
emphasizing. Yes.
yeah, when to use the comma and how to identify like this the where to use the comma or not like.
Okay, very good question. Now, if I'm talking to you about my neighbor and I want to tell you that my neighbor is a doctor, right? So I'm just going to say that, oh, my neighbor who's a doctor, she lives in, or I can say the woman who lives in my neighborhood, she is a doctor. So in this case, I'm not going to use a comma because the woman who lives next to my house is not a major information or an emphasized information. What is emphasized is that she is a doctor. Okay, I am emphasizing more about the fact that she is a doctor. But on the other hand, if I want to emphasize that, there's a doctor who lives next to my house, then I would put a comma. For example, the woman living next to my house is a doctor. Okay, let me write it down. So, in the first example, the woman who lives next door is a doctor. We have the option over here versus the women, comma, who lives next door is a doctor. Now, in this case, this is by the way rarely used. but rather, if I want to emphasize about the fact that she is the one who lives next door, only then I will put a comma. Otherwise, you don't necessarily put commas in defining relative clauses. Okay? To make it like less complex, to make it simple, do not necessarily put a comma. What do we put a comma afterwards, or what relative clauses do we put a comma afterwards? Let's move ahead and discuss that. Okay. Books that challenge your thinking are worth reading. Now, in this case, what books are we talking about? Books that challenge your thinking. The restaurant where we had dinner was excellent. So, what restaurant is excellent? The restaurant where we had dinner was excellent. So, these are your restrictive relative clauses. Can I have one of you guys make a relative clause for, let's say, whose? Can you make a sentence with whose in it? Now, how to use relative clause? Pick a noun. For example, my shirt, right? So, the shirt, no, for shirt, you are going to use whose. Whose you use with people. Someone has a bit of background noise. Can you all turn off your mic?
I don't know what the problem.
Uh, okay. So whose we use for people, right? For example, pick a noun or pick a person in this case of whose. The
The
person whose jacket I'm wearing is sitting next to me. Okay. In this case, you do not necessarily put a comma. Any example from you guys?
this is the owner of the car who is standing beside me.
Who
No. Uh,
who
mm,
is standing beside me? Yes. So you are using this relative clause. Who is standing beside me is the owner.
it's not his. Okay. Okay.
Who want
Okay.
to who's? Are you talking
Yeah.
about like who's?
Go ahead.
Who's?
Emma?
You are talking about to what the clause is?
Whose? Yes.
Uh, there is some background noise now.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So you're talking about like to make a word related to whose or who?
Whose?
Okay, whose. So
Now, where? What noun do we use whose with? A person. The
yeah.
noun has to be a person, right?
mm, There. So so can we start with like there is a bag lying unattended. Whose? Oh no.
No. So the bag, you're going to use which or that.
Oh,
The
which
bag
other?
that is lying unattended is black in color. The bag which is sitting unattended looks suspicious. For whose, remember, it's for a person, right? And it's also a possessive. The car, uh, the car. The car. Oh, wait, I made a very good
the,
sentence in my head.
the people,
Mhm.
the people under the poverty line are those who's most affected.
Are
Those who
those
are
who? Again? You're making a clause, or you're making a sentence with who?
yes, yes, that's not. I'm trying to making a who's.
The
For
boy,
example, remember, use a person, right?
Oh,
The
okay.
person whose car I'm sitting in, the person whose jacket I'm wearing.
Now I got it. Okay, okay. So
the
I
boy,
met a man whose wallet was lost.
Exactly. I met a man whose wallet was, let's say, black.
Yeah,
So
the
with
girl.
people, you would
Yeah,
use whose.
she's the girl whose brother lives in abroad.
Exactly. Okay. What relative clause would you use with the room?
With ma'am? Which one?
The room.
The
The
room? Okay.
Where? Where?
The room where the incident happened, the
okay,
room
where?
that I am staying in, the room which was given to me. Any of these. Okay.
Oh, okay. So
Can you
the,
make a sentence with relative clause of where?
uh, we need we need a house with a room. Uh, we need a house with room.
Where the
Do
rooms are big and sunny, where the
yeah,
rooms are facing towards
Oh,
north. Yes.
yeah. Where the house has a home office. We need a house with a room for a home office, or the bag is
Okay.
with the big room to carry extra clothes.
Okay. All right. Now these are the simple
Mm.
questions or simple relative nouns, right? Then we have the non-defining or non-restrictive relative clauses. Now, this gives extra and non-essential information, and then commas are used, right? My car, which I bought last year, is already having issues. Um, so in this sentence, the clause adds information, but it's not necessary to identify the car. Then James, who recently moved to Canada, joined a team last week, or their vacation, which lasted 2 weeks, was relaxing. Now, in this one, you would use commas because this is additional information that is not exactly necessary to the context. Okay. Similar to, and the relative clauses, by the way, would remain the same. Similar to, let's say, the match. mm, the match which she won lasted 2 hours. Now, in this case, if you take out the commas, then it becomes a simple, relative clause sentence. It becomes restrictive. If you put in the commas, it becomes non-restrictive. The only, difference is the commas. Give me just a second. Just a second. Meanwhile, try to make some sentences as some examples, but again, it was the same as what we have discussed. You give me just one. Okay, I'm so sorry for that. Yes. So those are your non-restrictive relative clauses. Then let's have a look at the different the uses of relative pronouns. Who, as we have discussed, is used for people. For example, teacher who helped me was kind. Which is used for things. The phone which rang or was on the table, the camera which I bought last year, the bag which I had. That we use for either people or things for defining only. For people and things, the book that I lost was expensive versus the person that I met last year was cool, right? So for people, we use both who and that. But for things, we will not use who, as this is just for the people. Then whose is for possession, as I've given some examples that the person whose jacket I'm wearing, the student whose phone rang got a warning. So whose we're going to use with person and basically to describe a possession. Then we have where for places. The city where I was born is beautiful. And for time, we have when. The day when we met was unforgettable. Okay. Any other examples for when? Because we've made examples, but not for when. So, any examples for when?
So when is the train arriving?
That's a
Simple.
question.
Oh, sorry. It's
The time when I traveled to England was during the summer.
Yes. The time when I traveled to England was beautiful, right? Or
the
it was during the summer.
the last year Christmas was wonderful when I spent with my family.
Yes, that's a very good sentence. Okay. I think because of the shortage of time, we're going to just move ahead with the description and not the interactive passage for now. So, mm, let's understand again the basic difference between defining and non-defining. Defining clauses, no commas, essential to meaning, use who, that, and which. Non-defining, we use commas, can be removed, use who, which, and definitely not that. But when it comes to speaking, the commas would be switched to pause. Okay. For example, the boy who plays the piano is my friend versus my brother who plays the piano is my friend. So when you're writing, you're going to use commas, but when you're speaking, you're going to switch the commas with pauses. Any questions so far? All right then. Okay, so over here we have to decide if the clause is defining or non-defining. So for example, how would you do the first one? Do you think the first one, where would you put the commas if there are needed? So what do you think? Is this information necessary to the context or no? The teacher who gave us homework is strict.
I don't think so. There should be a comma.
There doesn't have to be. Okay,
Yeah.
the teacher who gave us homework is strict could be again, by the way, it depends, as I've mentioned earlier at the very start, it depends on the context. Okay, so if you are using this and you have, well, you are trying to emphasize it, then yes, go ahead. Otherwise, it doesn't necessarily have to be with a comma. And when you're speaking, similarly, pauses you can add, but if you much rather not have it, so that's fine as well. Let us try. mm, Wait, I think we have so far. We would have, we can go into the details of it in the next session. But for now, let's try and do this with the time that we have. Whatever we have learned, let's try and utilize that in exercise number 5, where we are to edit this paragraph. So over here, both of these are, well, paragraphs in which there is either no punctuation for relative clauses or there are no relative clauses used. So I would want you to rewrite this with using relative clauses, either defining or non-defining. You can take whatever. You can take the first one, you can take the second one, up to you. Okay? Have you understood it? You can rewrite it in the chat box. Let's have 5 minutes for this task. Rewrite it in the chat box, please. Okay, are you guys done? Hello. Okay, so since we're getting close to the time as well, so what we can do is you can take a screenshot of this and then complete this as a homework, and then we can discuss this in the next session. All right.
Okay.
All right
Yeah.
then. Let's find it up here for today, and it was very nice to meet you all again. I'll see you in the next session on the same timings, not this one, but rather the one that we usually have. You will be notified about it anyways. All right, take care.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye
Thank you
today.
so much.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.